They say you can't buy love, but what I personally would call hate, on the other hand, can apparently make you a ton of money. The Guardian has reported that Restore UK leader and actual MP Rupert Lowe has been paid almost £1,500 an hour for some of his tweets on Elon Musk-owned platform X, with the total sum paid out this year set to match his parliamentary salary. Now, I found this pretty hard to believe myself. I don't know why, because Banseka told me earlier that she's been talking about this a lot on another podcast. So I went and checked the register of interest myself. And yes, it's right there in black and white. In 2026 so far, Lowe appears to have received almost £56,000 across 12 payments for a total of 60 hours work. That's £932 an hour. Nice work. And I'm going to do very heavy inverted commas on the work there, if you can get it. Except, of course, in Lowe's case, it isn't nice. Amongst Lowe's high engagement recent posts was this one from last week, calling on Britain to enact a burqa ban. This was another Lowe banger from the weekend, getting in a strop over the BBC reporting the success of a Sudanese child refugee getting their GCSEs. Now, it goes without saying that everyone has the right to express their opinion, even if you fundamentally disagree with it. Maybe the kind of engagement Lowe gets and the kind of money he makes, though, shows that lots of people just do agree with him. Maybe that's all it shows. But that kind of massive engagement raises more than a few questions for an elected parliamentarian. For one thing, Lowe is supported by Elon Musk, the owner of X. He's like politically supported by Elon Musk, who has repeatedly amplified the MP on the platform and so grown his earnings which are in turn paid by Musk, who likes Lowe's political views. That's clearly a case of possible incentivization, if not financial interference in our politics. And while there's no suggestion of wrongdoing, do we want our MPs being paid by tech oligarchs who write things they like that they can then amplify, all with the sheen of the officialness that comes with the author being an MP? In other words, potentially reducing our parliamentarians to handy puppets whose income is derived from credentializing the views of someone whose vast power is not democratic, but merely economic. And of course, those payments, couldn't they also incentivize a person, and I'm not specifically speaking about Lowe here, to double down on their rhetoric, even intensifying it, rather than engaging with a politics that's more in the interests of the nation rather than their bank balance. In response to the Guardian article, Lowe has said this: "If I wanted to make money, I would not be in politics. I donate my entire net MP salary to local charities in my constituency. Being a politician is the most expensive job I've ever had." Maybe don't give your money away and then it wouldn't be expensive. In a later post on X, Lowe listed all the charities in Great Yarmouth that he says he gives his entire monthly MP salary to each month. I think that's great, fine, but it doesn't answer any of the questions or concerns that I raised above. Banseka, what do you make of the story? As I said, you've been talking about this for a while.
An evergreen story it's becoming for me, I think. Yeah, it's really grim, isn't it? Because I think for me, either way, it's bad. Right, if he collects his whole salary and on top of that, he's still being paid by X, I think that's bad. Increasingly, it looks like he's on a trajectory at the moment where that amount that he's getting from X will like start to dwarf his MP salary if he was taking it. So his incentives are still warped because your main pay is actually coming from somewhere else, potentially. But then the other side of it is also bad, which is what he claims, which is he has said that he donates his salary to charity. I would argue that's maybe even worse, actually, because then it means that you are almost entirely bought potentially by private interests and not the taxpayer at all. You actually have no financial incentive to be doing things with the taxpayers and your constituents in mind. So I think that's really, really awful. And the charitable angle, really, it's a bit of a deflection. Would his constituents not really feel like they might be better off with an MP who, isn't bought by private interests, right? Someone who doesn't have this incentive to potentially be engaging in increasingly divisive rhetoric, and I think as you've shown, like the more his posts are seen and engaged with, the more money he gets. So there's a direct link, right, between engagement and how much he receives financially. And so there is a big incentive inbuilt into there, as we know in these very pernicious platforms, particularly X, to use more divisive rhetoric, divisive ideas to further your reach. And then if there's a financial incentive linked to that, that I think that's quite a corrosive situation. We were talking earlier, and Rupert Lowe he's not just a backbench MP, really. He's also actually someone who, on the political scene, increasingly at a kind of more national electoral level, is having an impact. He may well have an impact, his Restore Party, in a number of seats across this country come the next general election. So that's quite a worrying set of ideas, a worrying load of sort of things coming together. And in contrast, Nadia Whittome, who, when she became an MP, I think it was in 2019, and I believe she's still assigned to this commitment, which is that she would give away half her salary, and she gives away half her salary to various different charities, I think, or union movements and things like that. I checked her register of interest today. She has no registered interest. It was just a blank page. And so if MPs want to do that, that's fair enough. She takes half her salary, which she feels like she can live on, and she donates the rest to elsewhere. I think that's completely fine. But to try and make up that vacuum with private vested interests, to me, you are bought. You are not working for the taxpayer. You are working for other shady interests.
But I think each of the payments registered from X was for 5 hours work. And I think they start off at the beginning of this year or something at sort of £2,000 or £3,000 for 5 hours work, and by the end it's like £12,000 for 5 hours work. So you can see how the amount of how the engagement has increased and the value of the tweets, assuming that hourly amount that he's putting in is accurate, that he can only produce so many tweets in 5 hours or whatever, that the money that they bring in is in a kind of feedback loop with the kind of engagement, extra engagements he gets, points at which I suppose Musk has tweeted him himself or commented on a tweet to increase the engagement. There is a kind of mechanism that seems to be at work here, a really lucrative mechanism if you're saying the kinds of things that a particular billionaire with very strong political views, very strong, and I would say detrimental political views, wants you to say. Someone who is not even in the UK, someone who's not that I think billionaires in the UK should have extra rights, but they're in American, they're not here. And
it sort of made me laugh a little bit because in one of the quotes that you showed, he said, I have to work really hard to make my money. I would not be in politics if I just wanted to make easy money. And not being funny or anything, I think if he worked in a hedge fund, I think he genuinely would have to work harder for that money. And I'm not sitting here defending, hedge fund managers or saying that they, are kind of hugely of a societal good. But I genuinely think if you went to the city, you would probably have to do more than a few tweets to earn that kind of money.
Yeah, and what's interesting as well. I was thinking when about what should we do? What can be done? That kind of thought. Should there be parliamentary rules that say that if an MP just can't take money for media appearances, for example, for work in the media? I mean, I actually wouldn't be particularly opposed to that. I think MPs, they are paid by the taxpayer. They should go out and put themselves in front of the country for free to say what they think, so that people can decide in their constituency whether they want to vote for them and indeed whether they want to vote for a party that they belong to. I think it's ridiculous that MPs get paid to make media appearances or get paid to say things on the internet. I don't think that should happen. But the trouble is, you sort of immediately know what the reaction from Rupert Lowe would be if there would be any attempt to institute on the basis of the kinds of earnings that he's making from a foreign billionaire, which is that it would be a free speech issue. And it would be a way of trying to silence a voice of, much needed dissent in the country, a truth speaker who, the establishment can't bear to hear. Obviously, and some people would buy that. I mean, no one's stopping him from tweeting, right? They're just saying you can't get paid for it.
Yeah, and you can say all that stuff for free.
You can say it for free, I say stuff for free.
Yeah. So, to me, that kind of sullies the idea of freedom of speech, right? To say, well, I have to be paid to say this. No, you should have your freedom to be able to say what you believe within some limitations. I'm not a free speech absolutist, but, to me, it really sullies that very important value to say, well, I simply must be paid. I mean, it's just completely perverse. Just say it for free. If you really mean it, and it really is just about your values and nothing else, it's not about the paycheck, you will get up and say it for free, and you can take your MP salary. I'm quite happy for them to take their salary. I would even justify if we just kind of abolished, secondary incomes, which I personally would support, by the way, for MPs. I don't think they should get, a dime doing anything else, and if you don't want to just be an MP, then don't be an MP. I would support them having a slightly higher salary to do that. I genuinely would, because I think that the impact of that would be to remove a lot of kind of corrosive activity in our politics. But yeah, if it means that much to you and you really want to say it, you can say it with your MP salary.
I never understand the argument against raising MP salaries. I mean, one's saying raise them to the to the level of hedge fund managers or whatever. But put them up a bit. It's a serious job. Pay it seriously. But bring the caveat that is actually your full-time job, your really truly full-time job, and you can't have other sources of paid income. I mean, I guess you can't stop people being landlords and whatever, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I say this all the time, I think that register of interest thing is a joke because it's just one long list of like, here's all the ways I've been paid and here's all the ways I'm complicit, but it's all written down, so it's fine.
Yeah, the one that always makes me laugh is like the assets, but they never have to say what they're doing with them. They just have to say they've got them.